Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is an unusual video. It's not a how-to, although it is indirectly. This is a Zygopetalum. Now I am a paid up member, exclusive member possibly in my case, of the I Kill Zygopetalums Club. Yeah, this is my fourth. I've had 3 before and they've all died on me. Now 2 of those were crap plants, you know, sold on by people who don't give a monkeys about that sort of thing, and I didn't know, so that was some time ago. But I've tried to find out where the problems lie, and that has not been easy, to say the least. So first of all, I know it's PM and that's normally the red stuff, but I've got to go out in the car in a minute, so it's the coffee. Let's get that out of the way. So this is a zygo. You've seen it before in videos. It hides away. Most of the advice you can find that is from people who are successful with them. Now if somebody's successful with a type of orchid, you listen to them. If somebody kills them, you probably don't. Oh, you've all gone away. Oh well, I'll talk to myself. Anyway, one thing I don't like is this coconut based husk stuff. I don't like it. That's me. You may think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I can't stand the stuff. Some years ago, it was deemed the future of orchid media. And lots of people went out and got the stuff, and some people were very silly and changed lots of their orchids in one go into this flashy new stuff that was going to be the best thing around. And then they came back and said a lot of my orchids have died. Now okay, you might have found some of that packaging said this may need to be rinsed first. This may contain some salt. Now I've seen some of that stuff that was sold, not to me, not the stuff I got. Mine wasn't too bad, but I still didn't, I didn't like it after a while of using it. I've still got some to get rid of. But, other people said that, basically they put their plants in it and the roots seemed to set off down into the new media and everything seemed fine. And then they found that their roots were keeling over badly. And some did some tests and they came out with TDS readings after pushing some water through the pots that were off their scale. The stuff was full of salt. And then you do a bit of checking and you find, well, a lot of it comes from the coast. A lot of it comes from trees that grow on the beach. And yeah, okay, so, if you're going to use that stuff, personally, I don't, but personally, if I chose to, because there was nothing else left, that stuff would get soaked for a fortnight and the water changed 20 or 30 times before it would get near an orchid root, and then I still would be worried. So I don't use it. That's what this is in. Now this started off with not a mark on it. Every single leaf was clean. Now we have the traditional spots. Not many, but we have some. Now I can guarantee none of those leaves have ever seen a splash of water. I'd get it out the way if there's even a chance of another plant dripping on it, so I've kept the leaves dry. Some people spray them and they've still got clean leaves. What's going on? Anyway, a bit of research, you know me. First of all, Zygopetalums are not true epiphytes, and some of the species are actually terrestrials, so they don't hang off trees in the main. Perhaps some do. I haven't looked into every single one. I haven't got time. So first off, this is not going to go in chunky bark with lots of air around it. Because from what I've read and, talking to other people, that's not how they grow. I suppose you could class it as a semi-terrestrial. And the other thing I've found out is that their roots like to spread out. Now that goes with the terrestrial nature. Their roots would like to spread because they're down in the ground in leaf litter and things like that. Their way of holding on and not getting blown away in a gale is to spread their roots out. Just think of a tree. That's what it does. Okay? So that's the number one factor I'm going to take on board. So I don't know what's in this pot. I don't know what I'm going to find. All I know is that I have one pretty healthy new growth and I've sort of been waiting for some new roots, and there may be some nubbings appearing, but I haven't got what I would like, which is half a dozen or more half-inch long new roots with growing green tips. That would have been perfect, but I'm not happy to leave it in that pot any longer. So we have the armoury today. We have some moss, we have some medium bark, no big bark, and we have quite a lot of small bark. We also have some sponge rock, which I now can no longer get in the UK. The only guy who sold sponge rock is merely giant perlite. It comes in much bigger pieces. Yeah? Otherwise it's basically perlite from what I can gather. But the guy who supplied that in the UK was told if he wanted some more he had to buy a pallet, which was something like 1 1/3 cubic meters. And he said, I'll be dead before I sell that lot. I said, well, can't you split it amongst some vendors and sort of share the cost? And he said, there's only so many people want it. Spreading it between the vendors will reduce my sales down to the proportion of those that are selling it. So between us, we'll still never shift it. So that's it. That's all I've got left. Let's get the thing out of the pot then. As I said, for God's sake, don't do exactly what I'm doing now, because I'm openly admitting I don't know what I'm doing. I kill Zygopetalums. I don't do very well with them. This is what I'm on about, this stuff. This is fibrous. Now that might be good for zygos, but I just don't like it. Well, first thing, I've seen worse root systems. So far so good. That's not that bad a root system. Again, because this isn't your typical orchid, I don't even know if that's a good root system or not. But it's got roots. Yeah? I'm okay. Now I've got this out of the pot. There are some new roots just starting under that new growth. That makes me feel a bit happier. You know me with sheaths, I don't like them, so those that I can get at without tearing the plant to pieces will come off. Zygos are capable of pushing out a new growth in an unexpected place, so who knows? But I have seen new growths impeded. Hello? I think there might be another new growth around the back there. Who knows? Yeah, I mean look, there's a really distorted pseudobulb there. It's not your normal shape. So, you know, I don't know whether this is a good plant or not. But I'm going to run with it. I'll close down for a minute while I do my normal thing and rinse that lot off and clean it all off and get the old media out, because I don't want one scrap of that stuff left. I'll be back. Okay, we're back. Now, as I said, for goodness sake, don't follow this thinking it's a set of instructions to do. I'm just showing you what my attempt is to try and keep a zygo alive, which in the past has not been successful. I'll emphasise that again. Okay, so not really knowing what the root system's supposed to be like, a quick analysis shows that zygo roots branch. We like that. A lot of orchids tend to throw out a singular root, as I call it. It comes out from its base and it heads off at great gustos with a lovely green growing tip, and then that's what it does. And then it'll push out some more, some older ones will die off. But they don't branch very often, and some branch like hell. So this has a branching style to it. Okay. Now at first when I was washing it, I thought it had the traditional vendor solid lump of rotten moss in the middle, you know, that they just pick up and just plonk in another pot and put some new media around the outside, grow it on just about long enough to get it to flower, and then they dump it on you. We understand why. Okay, but in this particular case, that bit in the middle is a solid mass of roots, and I can't get in there any more than I've done without potentially doing some serious damage. So whatever's in the middle there, I think is roots, so they're going to stay. Okay. Now, my latest growth is here, so again, like I always do, you know, I start in a place where the new growth isn't, so that I can then push the plant back into that area knowing there's media behind it. Now, I want this to sit quite low in the pot, so that's probably about right. I put some big bark in the bottom, like I always do. I don't know whether that's the right thing to do in this case. But it's an air cone pot. You know, it has a a big piece going up in the middle with holes in to get air around the base of the roots. I don't even know if this wants that much air around the roots, but it's going to get it. What I don't want is roots rotting. Okay, I'm just trying to avoid that. So it's going to sit on there about at that height. Like I've said before, I don't like getting my media right up to the top of the pot, because when you water it, it all falls over the side. So I need some depth there. But I need the base of that new growth in some media. The new roots have got to get into something. Being a terrestrial or semi-terrestrial, it's not geared up to having roots in the air. It needs them in something pretty damn quick from the point they shoot out. And they are shooting out. There's quite a little bundle there. And I want them to get into some decent stuff and get some moisture. So this is going to be slightly different. But first of all, we need some stuff. So like I did yesterday, I'm going to pour some of that out. Now that's the medium-sized bark. And I'm not going to put too much of that in. This is a sort of terrestrial. It's not going to need as much air around the roots as perhaps some of the other orchids would love. God knows what that is. Okay, so that's a bit of wood. We don't want that. Yeah, I know bark's a type of wood, but you know what I mean. It's not what I want. I'm mixing up a fair bit of this because it is quite a large pot, and I don't want to run out until I get near the top, in which case it's probably just going to get... Okay, so nasty bits taken out, some big stuff, some small stuff. Now I don't even know if this is a good idea, but in a mix where I want some air but some water retention, it gets some of this stuff, the old sponge rock. I don't know why, I just like the look of it. And you see all that crappy dust? If you use this type of stuff, it's better to wash that before it goes in the pot. But I know the pot's going to get absolutely drowned in a minute, and it will flush it out. And if it doesn't the first time, it will the second time. It would be nice if whoever sells that got rid of it before I got it. But they don't. I'll flush it in a minute and it will go away. It's literally 2 waterings and the dust is gone. It's not a big deal. And again, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but it's actually going to get quite a lot of moss. Now what I do is, I like to repot with dry bark so that it tickles its way into all the little nooks and crannies between the roots and doesn't stick and leave pockets. And I do believe this type of orchid doesn't want air pockets in the media. It needs a good base. Now what I do with this stuff is I tear it into the smallest pieces I can. You don't necessarily need to do this. Don't do as I say or whatever, same rules. But I like it in the smallest pieces I can get. That way it will mix in really well with the media and form little tiny places in amongst that media where there's a bit of moisture, rather than a couple of big bits where it's soaking wet and some bits where there isn't any. Sound reasonable? Maybe. Okay, so I'm tearing this up into small pieces. That's how I like to put moss in with a bark mix. If I was doing a mount, as you saw yesterday, I wouldn't do anything to it, I'd just use it. Okay, so that's quite a lot of small pieces. Then I start stirring and try and make a judgment call as to whether I think I've got enough moss in there. And I'm going to go with yes. Of course I know exactly what I'm doing, don't I? Not. As I've said before, this is a way to pot a Zygopetalum, and who knows, in a few months' time I might be able to say, if you want to kill a Zygopetalum, go and have a look at my video, because this is exactly how you do it. We shall see. Oh, I missed a bit of rubbish. Get out. Okay, so I'm only putting a small amount in because I want that plant to sit low. And something I am going to do slightly different, I hope, is to get a handful of that stuff and try and get it to sit on the base of the plant and wiggle its way in, and then gently put it down, so that I'm reasonably confident that in that section of the roots there is some media to start with before I start tickling the rest of the media in. So, like I say, new growth for me, right over to the edge of the pot where I don't want it. But that will allow me to get round the back, tickle, 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 This has got to be thorough this time. As far as I'm concerned with this type of orchid, I do not want any bits where there isn't any media. I want it in there. I want it in and around all these roots. If this works, I shall celebrate. Okay, and then push the plant back to that area, yeah, knowing I've got a good base round there, and not squash it, but just push it back, yeah. That now gets my new growth, and if that one round the side is another new growth, it's going to come out like here, so it's still going to have some room to move. And then we start doing the same round this side. And if I want to make sure I've got no air gaps, I don't put in much at a time. I put in a relatively small amount and ease it in. Now in a perfect world, I love those roots to be fanned out like that. Because the story is they like to spread out. Well, they're going to have to work for that because I can't think of a way of doing it otherwise. So I'm going to run with this methodology, shall we say. I'm not going to pack it in tight. I'm going to leave some room. This is quite a small bark, so it's going to pack itself in relatively tightly without my help. Okay, right, I'm just building up to the point where the media sits just below that new growth. Now that's a little higher in the pot than I would like, but I also know that as I water it will sink down a bit, and all I'm interested in is getting some media where those roots are without breaking them off. Now this isn't going to need staking, it's not going to get shaken, it might get stirred but it's not going to get shaken. So that's probably about it. So a demonstration on how to kill a Zygopetalum. If it ends up being a demonstration of how to actually repot a Zygopetalum, I'll revisit it at a later date. But in the meantime, I'm just going to put a little bit more around there. I don't want to get too close to the top. Around the back, it doesn't matter if it's a bit lower because the chances of a new growth coming out of there are slimmer. Not excluded. And then one last little thing I'm going to do. The tiny little bit of moss that's left is going to get tucked around that new growth. Just like that. That's all. I'm not trying to cover it up or anything. But what I can do now is, as I keep my eye out for those new roots to push out, dry hands. You know me, I hate wet hands. Okay, so I can keep my eye on this now. After I've watered this, tomorrow or the next day it will be dry again. Now I don't want to let that happen with this type of orchid. These like to be bordering on dryness, not bone dry. I'm quite happy for my cattleyas to be bone dry before they get watered again. That's what they like. And same with my Tolumnias on the mounts, they like to be crispy dry with the moss before they get done again. These don't like to totally dry out. They like to stay slightly moist. You know, obviously when you water them they're wet, you know, and then they need to head off towards the dryness, and you water them before they actually get there. So they do need some careful watering. Okay, so one repotted, maybe killed Zygopetalum. Let's hope it does well. As I said, if it's the fourth one and it goes down, then that's it. That's me done. I will not buy another one. However, if this one pulls up and actually completes that new growth, and come to think of it, going back to distant memories, I've got a feeling that the flower spikes come out from near the base of the new growth before the new growth is completely mature. So if that's true with this particular variety, we could be getting a flower spike in the not too distant future. We'll see. Okay, just a quickie. Do not take this as an instructional video. It's a complete lot of guesswork based on a little bit of research done this morning as to, you know, how these grow, and that's the best I can do at the moment. Fingers crossed. Wish it well. We'll see. I might have to renew my membership. Thanks for watching. See you again.